Hello, everybody, y'all. I'm so out of breath. I just ran up 2 flights of stairs and I'm out of breath, right? And so I just want to get on here and say this really quick, right? So I'm in the car and I'm on my way home. I had to drop somebody off at work. And then I was like, let me go grab me a coffee. And I sit there for a minute, right? And y'all, it's so cold outside. It's rainy. And I'm outside like a grandma. Right? You like that mama going to drop her kids off to school in the morning. So many know. I just let my dog out, my one dog out to use the restroom. And she trying to get in the house already. Little crack dog. I ain't never seen nothing like this. But so as I get closer to the home, one of my family members reached out to me. This is a person that don't call me much, right? She don't call me much. And so I do believe that this particular individual has been and had been spiritually attacking me, right? This is somebody that I kind of one of my family members that kind of grew up close to me, right? Not in the same house as me, but they would come over all the time, right? When we was little girls. And we was raised the same way, basically, right? We both have been abused. We both have been talked to any kind of way, done any kind of way, right? And so I'm saying that to later get back on that, right? And so anyways, this particular person, every time they call me, when they call me every now and again, something is just not sitting well with me when they call me. For the last couple of times they've been calling me, right? I didn't think about it for a while when they would reach out to me every now and again. But these last 2 times that they reach out to me, God told me to watch it, right? You know, God will give you that inkling that something is just not right with that person, right? And so what I started to feel, right, because God has been amplifying our energies, our third eyes, our chakras, our ears, right? These are things that I already had, but they've been amplified on 1,000, right? And so the last time they called me, they called and hung up. Then I waited a while and I called back and I said, what's up? Oh, I didn't mean to call you. I accidentally pocket dial you. For one, who's pocket dialing people these days? Nobody, right? Say that for the bullshit, right? And so I was like, oh, okay. She was like, oh, I'll call you back later. And I said, okay. They never called back. And so it's damn near about 3 to 4 weeks later and they call back. But when they on the phone talking, they're not talking about nothing. They bringing up like 8 different subjects. It just not making sense. The sense is not sensing to me, right? And so this individual has gotten themselves in some form of trouble. And they in and out of the courtroom and all this stuff. I believe that this individual has done something very nefarious in the background. And they getting caught up for it, right? They didn't got caught up for it, right? And so God also told me that this individual was spiritually attacking me. And I kept it moving, right? I said, God, okay, well, I'm a person, I like to have proof, I like to see. And God been showing me. And so when she was on the phone and she bring up 8 different subjects, I'm just listening to her. Nothing she's saying is making sense. She didn't bring up this, she didn't bring up that, she didn't bring up this. And it's like very short, right? So I walked down to the store and I seen this guy and he was just sounding crazy. And, oh, girl, do you remember such and such when we was kids? Oh, yeah, because their dad was a pedophile. Oh, did you remember that? Like just bringing up all different type of stuff. But it's almost like this individual wanted to say something to me. And they was casting spells and illusions over the phone as well. And God told me to cloak and cover myself, to hear, but to cloak and cover myself. Because I almost hung up, but God said no. Then she kept saying, well, for the last couple of days, I've been just like so confused. And I've been like a little bit confused and dazed. And right. But when she was saying that, I felt myself getting dazed. And I sat there, I turned the phone down while she was talking. And I covered myself because God wanted me to still listen. Right. You got to be careful answering the phone for these battered people. Every time they call you, something is wrong. Something dramatic is happening. Right. And so she had said something about her mom. She said something about her mother. Right. And as a mom, I just snapped on her because I'm tired of her talking about her mama. You know, she putting a man before me. And when I was in jail, I called her and said this and said that. And I snapped. I said, hold the hell on. I said, your mom got your kids. I said, you are lucky, you are blessed, right? That you from pillow to post, house to home, right? And your mama got your 2 babies. And I said, and you talking about what she ain't did for you. I said, but you ain't got no reason to be in the situation that you're in, right? I said, because most people go through what they go through, and they got babies, and they got to shrug them babies around with them. They got to drag them babies around with them. I said, your mama, you blessed enough to have your mama having your babies while you going through what you going through, right? And you still refusing to get up off your ass and do something. And so she said something about, well, yeah, I went to court and they said this, and I just been trying this and trying that. I said, you ain't tried shit. I said, one thing about a courtroom is this. One thing about a judge is this. They don't care about what you talking about you trying to do, right? If they don't have physical proof that you done actually took care of something and did something with yourself, right? So, for instance, if you done got in trouble and your court case been going on for 6 months to a year, right? Why is it that you still stand with your grandmother? Why is it that you still ain't got nothing done with yourself? At least while you sitting there, so like if you don't have a diploma, right? You can at least get your GED. If you don't have a job, at least go get a job at the corner store or somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Because everybody know it don't take a rocket scientist to figure out that an idle mind and idle hands is a devil playground, right? And so if you already in trouble, right, for sitting on your ass and having too much time on your hands, and you still months later sitting on your ass and got that time on your hands, what have you healed? What have you went deep off into and evolved from, right? That's what they looking at. I don't care. And then people, I'm sick. And I was going to sign up for this, but I did. It was always I was going to do, but never did with her. And everybody else got in her way. I have never heard so many ways. Let me tell you something. Y'all, let me tell you. I listened to her for a minute, and I told y'all I snapped. And I said, there is no reason for you to be in the situation that you're in. Every situation that you're in, you did it to yourself, right? And I believe that this individual is harboring emotion and nasty energy towards me because we've been through the same thing, but I got on up, right? And so they was throwing darts in the background and being a thorn in my side, and they still watching me climb, right? And so this individual, along with multiple other people, was putting roadblocks in the way. So everywhere I turned, it was a block, right? But when God lifts you up out of there, ain't nothing nobody can do, right? And see, she said, you know, because we gifted. My whole family got gifts, right? They're very gifted. And so she said, you know, Granny came to me and, you know, I just been thinking about her for the last 4 days, really, really bad, right? And I said, you know, when elders come to you like that, I said, you've been doing something you ain't got no business doing. And I said, they trying to walk you on through there before they walk you on down through there. You understand? They trying to walk you. I had to repeat it twice to her so she could understand what I was saying. I said, you doing something you ain't got no business doing. If an elder is coming to you in a spirit like that, right? But what she was saying that individual was saying to her spiritually, you doing something real spiritual and they asked you to stop multiple times, right? They done told you to stop multiple times. And so they trying to get you to turn around and go and heal yourself and walk you on through there before they walk you on down through there. You understand? And so God had already told me that she had multiple warnings to stop and that this individual won't stop. And so what she basically doing is showing me that everything that God had been telling me that this individual was doing has been doing. Right? It ain't just her, it's multiple people. But for some reason, she the one that God brought to me in the forefront that was doing a lot of stuff, right? Bitter, mad, upset. And so I don't make excuses. And so she continued to make excuses after excuse after excuse, right? And I had to tell her, like, I said, look, child, because you get on my nerves. Look, child. I said, how old are you? I said, you only about, it's a 3-year difference in between us. And I said, we still pretty young. I said, you should not be enduring the things and going through the things that you're going through. Because you put yourself in them situations. I believe that she did something very nefarious, right? Because it's a couple inheritance that was supposed to swing my way, right? And they did not get over here. And so God let me see her in a vision, walking through somewhere, looking like me with some form of wig on, going to do things in my name. This is what God showed me, y'all. This is what God showed me. I seen her with a wig on, going into the court signing paperwork. And I'm like, God, what you showing me this for? What the hell, that blind ass wig on, right? I was cracking up. Because God know I love me some blind wigs. But the blind wig was toe up, right? And I said, God, I ain't putting no blind toe up wig on. Who is that? right? But it was an individual who looked it slightly like me. And when God gave me the closer look and the person turned around, it was not me, right? I thought at first God was trying to show me an old version of myself. No, baby. He was showing me that hoe in the courtroom doing something nefarious. Nefarious, right? She was doing something nefarious. You hear me? She was being grimy. And so the last time she called me, I talked to her about that. I said, y'all better stop putting on these wigs, acting like people. She got real quiet. Because I'm going to call you out, bitch. Hold on. Wait a minute. And people be ordered to stay away from you and you don't know, right? And I told her this as well. I said, you know, when the court order you to do something, I said a lot of times you walk free because they really building a case on your ass, right? Because they know that when a person is addicted to doing something and they unhealed that like that, they know that you're going to go back to doing that thing that they told you to stop doing. And I said, and so a lot of times you only roam free so they can watch you and what you're doing, right? And go ahead and continue to build that case on you, right? And so when they call everybody into, we need to understand and know why these photos and these videos and these voices been documented and changed up, right? Because we brought in the expert and that's not that person, right? And so, anyways, it's been a lot of things that she been doing. And so she got on my nerves so bad with making the excuses. I said to her, I said, look, I said, there is no excuse. I don't give a damn, right? I said, let me give you an example. I said, one day, I said for a year straight, right? I said, it wasn't that I was in trouble, right? It was about the financial part of it. And I said, I drove around for a year on expired tags and expired license. Expired. And I said, every day I got in that car and I had my work was about 30 to 35 minutes away from me. I said, we got to tell this testimony. I said, my job was 30 to 35 minutes away from me. I said, I drove like that for a year. And every day I got in that car, I said a prayer, right? A serious prayer, right? This happened to me on 2 to 3 different occasions, right? And so the first time was way back when. I'll tell you about that. But this time when I drove around on expired license and expired tags for a year to get the work. Yo, I wasn't really driving nowhere else unless I had to go to the grocery store. Single mother out here doing my thing. I did not have the finances to do it, right? To take care of my business. And the stuff that was on my record, like little driving stuff, I didn't even have did, right? And so one day my dad called me and he said, Moo, he said, I went down there, I ain't gonna lie, I'm nosy, and pulled your record downtown. That's another story. And he said, why you got all this little minute driving stuff on your stuff? He said, I can look at that and tell that ain't you. I said, you damn right, Dad. I said, I thought I was the only one tripping, right? Because it was looked like tail lights. It was real little stuff on my record that I knew that I never got pulled over for. And so a particular individual in my family had a history of using other people's names when they got pulled over because they never drove with license, right? And so, anyways, I said, Dad, I'm going to go take care of that stuff. He said, you better go take care of all that stuff, you know, with that little, but it had added up to, that little bit of stuff had added up to a lot. Y'all, in my life, I probably only got pulled over like 3 times ever in my life. And so I'm trying to figure out why it's 10 different things on here, 15 different things on here. And so, anyways, it was all like little driving stuff on there. Tail light, headlight, seat belt, stuff like that I never ever got pulled over for. And so I said, yeah, Dad, I'm going to take care of it, right? I said, my license has expired and my tags has expired. And I said, they got a program coming up at the first of the month. It's, I think, the first Tuesday or Wednesday of the month. At that time, I said, I'm going to go there because they're supposed to help you get your license back and go talk to the judge for you. And I'm going to bring it to the judge about that stuff not being mine, right? And so my dad, I know who did it. And he said the person's name, right? He said, I know who did it. And that was the person who I knew it was, too. That's what was crazy. My dad is very discerning. And so he said, you better go take care of that stuff before it turns into something bigger. And stop driving around like that because God will take care of you, right? And so I said, oh, Dad, we only got a couple more days. I'm going to that program. So, y'all, I went down there to this program. This is the story that I'm telling this individual. I said, I went down there to go to this program. I said, I was on time and everything. I said, it was a bitter Betsy bitch that was sitting up in the front, right? And when you go in there, it was a security office right there, security guards that was sitting there behind a little desk. And you look to the right of you, and it was a little table sitting there with like 3 people sitting at this table. And so the security, he said, hold on, let me make sure it ain't too late, right? For you to go in here because they started. So let me go back here for a minute. And God also covered me for that 1.5 years too. And so I didn't get pulled over not one single time, not once. And so I said, I ain't testing my luck no more. My dad brought it to my attention. I got to go take care of this. And this program is coming up. And so when I went inside of there, I walked up to the security desk first. And I said, hey, he said, I'm going to go check and see if it's too late. He said, because they start so early. He said, I think you should be okay, but I'm at least check so we ain't wasting our time, right? Very smooth, cool guy. It was another woman sitting there. They were both police officers. They was very extremely nice. And so he got up and went up to the girl. She was about my age, sitting there looking all bitter and nasty, right? And he said, is it too late for her to come in here or can she come? She said, no, she can go ahead and go in there. He said, don't she need like a name tag or something? Because I knew everybody had a name tag. She was like, no. And it was a little sign up sheet. He said, but don't she need to sign up? No, she good. She can go straight in there. She good, right? And so we both kind of looked like, So I walk on in. I listened to the guy speak. He spoke first in the little thing. And was a lot of people there, right? And so when we came out, I noticed that he calling people by their names on the board, right? And so the officer and me, we look at, after we come out this little seminar, we look at each other like, didn't this bitch just tell us that we didn't need X, Y, and Z, and they calling people by this? So the officer got up and said, hold on for a second, right? I said, you thinking the same thing I'm thinking. He went back there and talked to the actual person that was over this program and told him what had happened. She been here. She got here on time. People told her that she didn't need this, that, and the other. So I'm pretty sure she not on that list, right? And so we need to correct this because it's not fair to her that she came down here to do this and the people told her this, right? And he like, well, she can just come next time. Mind you, this thing was only once a month. And so he like, come next time. Hell no, she need to get seen today. Matter of fact, you need to see her now because what she did, y'all need to correct this thing, right? And he like, well, it's so many people in here and da-da-da-da. When you got an egotistical person try to run stuff and they need help, they don't want to get the help. They want to take the credit for everything. And you got over 200 people in this thing. Come on now, right? And so come to find out, I'm thinking that she a worker, a little secretary bitch. And so, Lord, excuse me, she had me so upset. But this is the story that I'm telling her. I said, the man, he kept making these excuses. And I said, forget it, man. I said, I just come back next time. He said, I got you. Give me your name and your address. He said, or matter of fact, what I can do for you. He said, because now you got me feeling all bad, man. He said, what I could do for you is that you ain't got to come here. You can give me your number and we can figure out a time and a date, right? He said, I'm going to give you my card and we can figure out a time and a date where we can meet up here and we can meet together and figure out how we going to do this thing. And I said, all right. So I was feeling at least a little bit better. But I still wasn't feeling content because I'm feeling some type of way because, God, what's going on? Because I trust in you, right? And so I said, God, you ain't about to let me roll around like this and roll out of here, right? And I'm in the middle of downtown, right? The police is everywhere. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I'm shaking like a banshee. I got to pull off in the middle of this. Y'all, let me go back here for a second. Y'all, I rolled around like that for 1.5 years. And when you roll like that, you paranoid than a motherfucker. Y'all, I thought I was a criminal on the loose. Right? I knew the days that the police was out, which was Tuesdays and Sundays, bitch, stay in the house. Y'all, I had got everything down packed, and they still like that too. And every first of the year, they start pulling people over really bad for some reason. Like around the New Year's January, February, March, April, May. It's the bad pullover times, right? And so that's how you know I was on that thing. I started paying attention, child. And so let me go back up. So I walked outside. And I was still feeling down. And what's so crazy is that where this seminar, whatever you want to call it, was right across the street from the courtroom that I had to go to, right? If I was going to go take care of that thing. And so I came out of there and I called my dad and I was so down, I started crying. Y'all, I was shaking. I was so mad for real. I said, Dad, God ain't going to do me like this. Oh, no, he ain't. My dad said, calm down. You all right. It's going to work out in your favor. I said, Dad, the man, I'm telling him everything that's going on, right? He like, you need to calm down, right? And my dad don't like to hear me cry. He get paranoid. He don't do emotions well, right? He had blocked himself completely off. And so when I started crying, he probably over there running through the house like, Lord Jesus, help me. I don't like to deal with this, people bury their emotions deep down, right? And so when I started to cry, he was vulnerable. He didn't like that. And so he like, you need to calm down. God gonna take care of you. God gonna take care of you. You need to calm down, right? And he said, this is what I want you to do. He said, What was you supposed to do for the last couple of days or last couple of months that God been telling you to do? And I'm like, I don't know. He said, what do you kept telling me you was going to do? So I said, oh, sow into something, sow into somebody, or sow into an innocent place. And he said, okay, so you need to go sow into, get off this phone with me and go sow into whatever it is that you feel necessary to sow into, and go into that courtroom and get your case pulled and go see the judge. And so I'm panicking. I'm like, so into it ain't nothing but bums down here, but the bums ain't even walking past. Like, where's the bum at when you need one? You know? I need somebody with one of them signs hanging up so I can give him a couple dollars and going on in here, right? And my dad was laughing. I said, Dad, ain't nobody down here, right? And I'm still crying. I said, ain't nobody down here. Ain't nothing down, y'all. That was the emptiest, and it was so many cars down there. But I've never not seen nobody ever walk past. It was like tumbleweed rolling across the street, right? That's how quiet it was down there all of a sudden. And so I said, Dad, ain't nobody down here. I said, out of all these cars down here, it ain't even nobody coming out the courtroom going in, nothing. It is just quiet down here. And I said, ain't nobody. And so my dad said to me, well, you got to figure out that's between you and God, right? He said it. He meant it. He said, so you need to get off the phone with me because I can't help you. I say a prayer for you. He said, you always got the solution and the answer, and you just act stupid as hell. He said, I ain't never seen nobody have it like you have it and just be playing stupid like you don't understand what's going on. He said, how can you tell me the problem and the solution, right? But you don't know how to get yourself out of this thing, right? He said, you got to get off the phone, but you better focus because God waiting, right? And I hung up the phone, y'all. I was still crying. Oh, he ain't listening to me. He always making it about himself, right? Y'all cried. I'm boo-hooing. And I finally got myself together. I pulled myself together and wiped my face. And I said, okay, God. I said, what we gonna do? Ain't nobody coming in out the courtroom. I don't see a bum in the bed. I don't see nobody that's so into it, nothing. And I heard quiet. And I just got real quiet, y'all. And God sent a warm sensation of peace over me. And I just looked around and I said, God, what can I sow into? Y'all, when I looked up, everybody, you know the meters downtown that you got to put money into? When I looked, I seen the one in front of me blinking. Then I kept looking. Everybody meters had ran out of money. Nobody. I walked for 15 minutes. I went in my purse, y'all, and I stayed with change, right? And went inside of my car, I stayed with change. And I had filled up everybody meters, right? For at least, everybody had an hour on their stuff. By the time I got done, 15 minutes of putting change and walking around and putting change in people meters, right? I finally went into the courtroom. When I went inside of there, I asked them, I said, can y'all pull my case? Because we could do walk-ins. They had time to go in there and do walk-ins. The lady pulled my case. She said, go to courtroom such and such and such and such. They'll be calling you up there. There's not a lot of people up there today. And the judge is kind of laid back, right? So you should be all right. And so when I went up there, he ended up about 3 people he called before me. He went on ahead and called me up there. And he said, how can I help you today? And he was looking at my stuff. And I'm watching him kind of twisting his head. And I said, Your Honor, I said, I'm going to be honest with you. I said, all that stuff is not mine. I said, I don't know if somebody used my name. I said, it's easy to get away with it because all they got to do is say their name is this. And when they give them that court date, when y'all call that person, when you go inside the courtroom and they call the name, all that person got to do is go present themselves. They ain't showing no ID or nothing. Right? That's the criminal place downtown to get away with stuff is right downtown. Right? And I said, a lot of that stuff is not mine. I said, I could list to you on that list what is mine. I said, but I didn't come down here for you to feel sorry for me or to go and debate with you, right? I said, can I be honest with you for a second? He said, sure, go ahead. I said, I've been driving around on expired license and expired tags. And so I told him, well, hold on, y'all, I got to catch back up because I was looking at my other video. And so I told him, I said, all that stuff on there ain't mine. And I said, can I be honest with you for a second? He said, sure, go ahead. He said, I told him, I said, I didn't come down here for sympathy. I said, I've been driving around like this for a year. I said, I'm going to be honest with you. I said, with expired tags and expired license, I've been driving like this for a year again, back and forth to work. I'm a single mom. And I said, I still don't want to, I don't want to put on empathy card. That's not what I'm up here for. I'm going to say that again. I said, but I at least need a little bit of help, right? So I can get on the right path, right? And I said, I cannot afford to pay all them heavy, big old fines. I cannot afford it. I just simply can't. And he said, well, how much money do you got on you? I said, I got $50. He looked like $50. Bitch, your shit like 6 bands. Oh, what? He looked at me like, ooh. I said, I got $50 on me. This is the story I'm telling her. And he said, can you do 500? I said, sir, I got $50. Right? I'm in there bargaining. I'm in there like a sales representative. I got $50. Well, can you at least do 200, 250? I said, I got $50, sir. I got $50. That's all I got. That's all I got. That's all I got in my bank. That's all I got. He said, Jesus. He said, well, you got to at least get about $200 so I can work with you and get some of this stuff off of here. And I said, Jesus. He said, just come up with $200 and I'll work with you. Right? He said, I will remember your case. I promise you, I will remember your case. He said, make it snappy now. I said, shit. And so I dropped my head again. He looked at me and I could feel the sorrow in his heart. Like he really wanted to help me. But it's like all these people in the courtroom, right? And whoever was in there was looking at him like, oh, you gonna show her mercy? Right? It was somebody, I could feel the atmosphere. Like, you ain't show none of us mercy. I wish you would show her mercy. That's how the devil worked, right? I could feel the conviction on the judge, right? And it's like he really wanted to help me. He knew I was honest at heart. He appreciated the honesty. But damn, these coworkers of mine, right? Can't have mercy on you, ma'am. You got to at least come back with 2. And so when I dropped my head and I said, okay. And I said, I'm about to drive from down here. I said, they might pull me over. I don't know. But I said, if I do, you just know that I tried. He said, here go a piece of paper to let you know that you got enough time to get your business together. He handed me that paper. When he handed me the paper, in case I got pulled over, that still lifted me up a little. I'm like, okay, cool. I got enough time, right? And so, when I went to leave out of there, the man from the program walked in and looked at me and started laughing, right? And I'm looking like, Jesus Christ, here come this nigga, right? And he said, the guy said, you know her? Right? The judge asked the man who was from the program, did he know me? But y'all, what's even crazier is that the female who did that bull crap over at the place, the secretary woman, girl, right? She was walking in with him and come to find out she wasn't nobody. She was doing community service and taking advantage of her community service. And she seen anything that looked decent, she was doing nasty stuff to him, right? So let me tell you how God worked. This is the story I'm telling her. I said, he said, yeah, I know her. She was just over there at the building, man. Something went wrong on my end. And the judge said, well, do you want to represent her real quick? He looked at me. He said, you so hard-headed. And I said, yes, I am. So I got to do this. I got to take care of this. And he was laughing. He said, yeah, I represent her. And he told him everything and repeated everything I said. He said, the judge said, this is what I'm going to do for you. Because you were so honest. And thank God you met this man, right? He said, this is what I'm going to do for you. He said, go downstairs and pay the $50 and come back up with the receipt. He said, don't leave out. Because we might be closed by the time you get back and I might forget by tomorrow, right? I said, but you said you were going to remember my case. And he was laughing. He told, I'm just joking with you. But go down there and pay the receipt, pay the $50 and come back up here. And I'll go over this stuff with you. Y'all, I ran down there. I couldn't wait to get down there. Y'all, and the course was getting close to closing. So I'm like, I hope this front desk ain't closed, right? And the lady said, good luck, right? She rang me up, gave me my receipt. She heard me did that receipt, right? And she said, good luck. She said, I got a good feeling for you, girl. I got a good feeling for you. I said, girl, pray for me. She said, I'm saying a prayer right now. And so I ran back up there. And when I got back up there, he had called like 3 other people, and he called me on back up there. The people in the courtroom who went before me, they sat back down because they wanted to see what this nigga was going to do, right? And so he said, come on back up here, Miss Banks. And I looked, and I'm like, oh, my God. My stomach was raised down to the bottom of my stomach. He said, you got the receipt? I said, yes. He told the officer, go get her receipt. He looked at it. He said, okay, let me go over this case for you real quick. He said, what do you think is not yours? And I told him. And I said, I'm telling you, I don't get pulled over. I said, I've been honest with you this far. I said, I'm telling you, I only been pulled over maybe 3, maybe 4 times ever in my life. And that's maybe the 4th, right? And he said, who do you think did it? And I told him who I thought did it. He said, sounds familiar, because the person's name was known. And he said, that's crazy. He said, that's your people? I said, yeah. He said, woo-wee. He said, yeah, sound about right. And so our city is not that big. He said, woo. He said, if you notice something on your stuff any other time, you need to come up here immediately. I said, but how often do we really come up here and check unless something happened? He said, you're right. He said, but now that I done had you, I ain't going to forget this. He said, I'm telling you, if something go on and you see something on your stuff that's not familiar, you come up here right away. And he said, I'm taking this off, this off. I think I might have owed like almost like $7,000 something dollars. That was not mine to owe, right? I don't get in trouble, right? And so he erased over, I think like 65, 67, right? $100 worth of stuff in that courtroom. And when I left out of there, I think I only owed like $400 total, right? Because he erased the fines, the fees, all of it. Just closed it, just shut it down. He said, well, you go get your license and you go get your tags. And that paper I gave you, if you get pulled over on the way, you tell them Judge such and such told you to go do this. Right? He said, I think you got enough time to go get your tags and your license. Y'all, I was so happy. I was jumping up and down. I hugged the judge. I hugged that man. I was running around that damn courtroom. I was so happy. I said, now God ain't nobody gonna tell me that God ain't real. Right? God, the spirit of God don't move, right? Ain't nobody gonna tell me, right? Ain't nobody gonna tell me. Ain't nobody gonna tell, can't nobody convince me otherwise, right? Y'all, so much things happen in my life, right? Even my son passed away. He was a month and a half, passed away from SIDS, right? But can't nobody tell me that God is not real, right? With the hurt, the pain, right? And so, that's another story. I done told that story. I got so many videos on my phone that I just haven't unleashed, but I'm gonna unleash this one today, right? I always say I'm gonna unleash it. I'm gonna do it today, right? And so, as I was telling this person his story, let me go back here for a minute. I heard from left there, y'all. I was zooming down the street, right? It was like 3 different places I can go to go get my tags and all my stuff. They released the paperwork. And he said, by the time you get down there, it's going to be in the system on their end because I'm going to make sure of it, right? Let me go back here for a minute. When I left out of there, the girl was standing next to the dude. She was like, congratulations. I'm so happy for you. Right? The same woman who did what she did over in that program that same day and did had a smirk on her face when she came into that courtroom and seen me in there, right? Being nasty, being evil. And so I said, I waited for a minute. I said, let me stand by the courtroom door for a second because I want to see what she in here for. Because I'm nosy, right? Because you done did me. It ain't about nosy. It's just that you done did some foul stuff you just did. And you just watch God work, right? She just watched God work. This same individual, when she got caught up there, she had so many violations. It wasn't even just driving violations. She was coming there in the program for the violation. I heard the man say, yeah, she doing community service. I said, oh, she a community service? Oh, she didn't even get paid to be no secretary. And she up in here playing like that. Right? Woo-wee. I was in there like, girl, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. Girl. I turned around and stop. Girl, stop playing with me. You ain't even getting paid to be a secretary. You in there causing problems like, girl. You in there taking advantage of a job you ain't getting paid for? Girl. Stop playing with me. Oh, you ought to be ashamed. Wait a minute. It ain't funny. I'm just saying. Right? Because I was just outside crying. And you ain't care. And so I'm going to sit here and listen to what your case could possibly be. I ain't playing in the name of the Holy Spirit. Right? I'm going to sit here because this is a testimony. I got to hold on. Y'all forgot about this testimony till my cousin called me talking about court and getting on my nerves and talking about playing crime games. I ain't got time for that. Anyways, y'all, I turned around and looked at her like, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. I'm so happy for you because I got to do community service. Y'all, they had her doing a ridiculous, like 500 hours. Ridiculous amount, probably more than that. Ridiculous amount. She wasn't even halfway through that thing. You went here sucking pee-pee to get your license relief, and this man still playing with you and playing on you. I knew what she was doing. She was being a hoe for that man, and that's why she was on the front line like that, playing with that position. And still wouldn't get nothing back. You shouldn't have never started going low for the 4, high for the 5 in your trench coat. Now you up in the situation, and then you got to watch God work because you playing up in the devil's territory. Anyways, y'all, I ended up leaving out of there. I clapped my feet together, pat, pat, jump in the air, and you pat, pat those feet together. And I dipped up out of that courtroom and got to that license bureau, and they gave me everything I needed, right? I got some testimony stories for y'all, right? When I was younger, I drove around like that again. I was way younger. And I thought my license was expired then, or my license and my tags was expired then, way back then. Y'all drove around like that for so long. It wasn't that long, maybe about 6 months then. I drove around like that. And I remember it was a blizzard outside, and I said, Lord, I said a prayer, and I had picked up somebody else's shift, right? Because I wanted to be there for my daughter's Christmas. And so it was the day before Christmas, and I told the girl, no, it was the day of Christmas. And one of my coworkers, she didn't have no kids, and she said, I know you want to be there for your daughter. And she said, for Christmas, she said, so I'm going to switch shifts with you. And she said, you come in on my shift at nighttime and get off in the morning, and then I'll come in for your morning shift, right? And so we switched shifts, and I left at 6:30 in the morning, and I said a prayer. It was a bad blizzard outside, and I said, Lord, I said, God, please don't let me get pulled over unless it's your will, right? I remember saying them words clear as day. Y'all got in that car, y'all. Pulled out the parking lot, drove down the street, and busted left. Soon as I bust that left and went down a little bit, bloop, bloop, I'm like, bitch, you a damn lie. You a damn lie. Lord, this better be your will. Sometimes, y'all, hold on. Y'all, that man pulled me over and he was a state trooper. Woo! He had that hat on. I said, this nigga got the nerve to come out here with this hat on and this cowboy boots on. Man, would you tell me what's going on? I said, could you tell me what's going on? Well, I pulled you over because you technically need to wipe off your license plates. Everything is covered. They need to stay covered. I said, okay, well, let me tell you this. I said, since you pulled me over and I prayed before I pulled out. And he had to, kind of, I said, I prayed before I pulled out of there. And my prayer to God was, God, don't let me get pulled over unless it's your will, right? And y'all, sometimes I would get rides back and forth to work through my supervisor because some days she'd go out on the E-way. She left out a little bit earlier than me. And she was my manager, actually. And she was like, girl, she would have to pass my house on the E-way. And she like, girl, the police out here everywhere. Girl, you better, I'm going to come pick you up. Because you might get pulled over today, girl. They all over the E-way, right? And so she would sometimes stop and come pick me up and take me to work when she got out there. Because she was always out early. And so she came pick me up. And she knew all what was going on because I was telling her about it. But we kept looking up online and it kept saying my stuff was blocked, right? And she like, you're going to have to go take care of that because I don't want you getting pulled over. Bitch, we need you in this workplace, right? And so I was a real good worker. I always been a good worker. And so do your job, my job, and their job, right? And so they was doing a lot of picking in those places too. But Minnie, I'ma beat your butt. She chewing on my remote, my dog. And so, I think her teeth trying to come out. She only a year old. I think some of her teeth still trying to come out. So she's still teething. And so anyways, that day I got pulled over. I told the officer, I said, look, man, you the state troopers. I ain't about to sit up here and play with you. He started laughing. I said, look, I just said that prayer and it obviously got to be a reason. I said, my license is expired. My tags is expired. And I said, I can't afford to be going to pay nothing, right? That's what still carried on, right, to that story I just told y'all. Because this story I'm telling y'all now was later. The one I'm just told was previous, right? So it was just an add up and more stuff was getting on my stuff, right? That was one of the times I got pulled over, which would have been the fourth time, right? Throughout my whole life of driving. I've been driving since I've been like 15, 16 years old. And so, he said, I told him, I said, look, I got a daughter and I said, some days you got to rob Peter to pay Paul. And I said, I'm going to rob Paul to do what Peter needs to do. And he was laughing so hard. I said, I had to go get Christmas gifts for my daughter. I'm a single mother. I'm doing this thing by myself. And so it's either Christmas or chancing, right? And I'm chancing it for my daughter's Christmas, right? And he said, well, thank you for your honesty, right? He said, it's expired. He said, you got at least your registration and stuff. He said, well, all your stuff is legit. So I know you ain't doing nothing, right? He said, but go take care of that. And I said, I am. And I said, but I promise you I am. He said, I'm going to make sure you take care of it, right? Even if you go see the judge and figure it out. And this was something in another in another county. And I'm like, what? I ain't never got put over in no other county. What's going on here? Y'all, somebody was from county to county, pillow to post, doing all kind of shit. And giving them my name. And so when I went in front of that judge, I told that judge, that's not mine. That's not mine. And so the judge said to me in that county, he said, why are you riding around like this? And I said, huh? He said, you need to go take care of your stuff and I'll see you in like another month. Right? No. Let me go back. That's a lie. So when on the way to me, going to go handle that, right? Because I ended up telling my supervisor, like 2 days later, once I went back to work, the manager who would come pick me up, like, girl, I got pulled over when I left here. She was like, girl, that one number guy. She said, I keep telling you to take care of that because it might not be even something you think it is. I said, but when we kept looking online, it kept saying it was blocked online, right? And so before I went to court, he said, I'm going to schedule your court date out for a month. He said, how much time you think you're going to need to get this straight? I said, at least about 2 weeks. He said, I'm going to give you a month. The officer scheduled my stuff out for a month. I don't even know how he did it. And so he said, go take care of that and then go to court. He said, it should be enough time and figure it out. Y'all, I ended up calling them people the next day down to the license bureau. And I said, hey, I'm calling this and this block and that block. That lady looked in that system. She said, ain't nothing blocked. I said, what? She said, girl, you've been rolling around like that for nothing. For how long? I said, at least about 5-6 months. She said, girl, you've been rolling like that for nothing. She said, and that officer seen in the system that you ain't had no block, and he really should have told you because they can see it. She said, you ain't got no block, baby. You ain't got no block. I said, but on our side of the system, it is showing, so it had to show blocked in his system. Right? Because when I was looking online, it was saying it was blocked. She said, well, you need to keep your mouth shut and come on down here and take care of your business, honey, because it ain't blocked in our system. So you need to shh and come on down here. My name is Mrs. Such and Such. Right? Come see me. Right? Y'all, I called my supervisor. My manager. I said, girl, they said it ain't blocked. She said, I told you. She said, girl, don't even come here. Go there. Right? I'll cover you. I went there, y'all. Wasn't nothing blocked in that system. I got everything I needed, right? And I was just in shock. I went in there, seen that. I said, your name is such and such. I knew because she was the only black woman in here. And she was like, yep. When I finally did go to court, I told them what was going on. I was honest with that judge, too. And I said, but I don't understand. It was something in their system, right? And I said, that ain't me. I don't know who using my name. I'm telling you it ain't me. And I said, I don't. So the judge was like, what took you so long to take care of it? I said, because it was saying it was blocked on my end, and I didn't have the finances to take care of it, but it's took care of now. He said, okay, I'll throw it out. Go ahead. You have a blessed day. He said, you do have I think, an $80 court fine. Pay it before you go out the door. He said, you got the money to pay? I said, yep. He said, pay it and we closing it. It's over. Bye. Right? Sometimes God allows things to happen because what you think is going on ain't going on. God be opening up avenues through the computers and everything. Right? It be blocked on this end and that end, but not on another end. Right? And sometimes God would allow it to show up like that on your end because he don't want you rolling around to save your life, right? That turn left in the times you jumping in the car ain't thinking and going to do this and doing that, you know, it slowed me down because I didn't want to roll around like that. And I only drive to work and maybe to the grocery store or something around my house and go back home. And so God, y'all, it was so many things I could tell y'all about. Another time I got pulled over for the same damn thing, right? But this time it was just like what was it? Y'all, I had got a DUI many years ago. And I shouldn't even have got a DUI. And the dude that I was dating at the time, he was drunk and he got out of the car trying to argue with me and I went off on him and I pulled off, right? And it was a narcissistic police officer mad because he got out the car. He was sitting over, the police officer was sitting at the corner or whatever. And so he said, I'm noticing this and that and da-da-da, and that's why I pulled you over. I'm like, okay, whatever. And so he was like, you can blow or something for, I think it's like, you either blow or your license is suspended for a year, but it's automatically suspended. You got to go through stuff. I didn't know that then. And so anyways, they pulled that shit. I'm trying to think what I did, what was going on with that. Oh, something wasn't corrected in the system, right? I had did everything and took care of everything that I needed to take care of, showed up to court, and something was not unblocked in the system. And so, I had got a letter through. When you get a DUI, you can't drive for a certain amount of time and all this stuff. But I had to go I was doing community. I didn't have to go do community service, but this is something I was doing. I was doing like, what is not community service? What is that? Like volunteer work or whatever. When you're not ordered through nothing, you just do it. I was down the street from my house And it was around Christmas, and I decided to get up to go to a nun's facility where retired folks go to help them decorate for Christmas and feed the elderly. See how God worked? See how God worked? Y'all, I didn't even know I was doing the work of God. I was doing it because that's what was on my mind and my heart. I'm up there doing the work of God, and God just breaking everything off, right? Permission slip from a certain amount of time a day to a certain, but it was basically all day because that judge knew I wasn't doing nothing. So he had gave me a permission slip to be out all day in my car. And so I told him what happened. I told him what his police officer did. I was honest. I said, hey, he full of crap. That ain't what happened. And I said, and I got to go to work. He said, what time you work? I said, all day. I can get tardy because I work with special needs and I get called to this house and that house. He said, I'm just not. Just give her for all day. Give her. She can be out any time of day she want to be out. Right? That's how God was blessing me. Just get out. I don't know what's going on. Right? Because when I was speaking, they knew I was telling the truth. Right? And then I didn't know I had authority and conviction in my voice. Right? I didn't know that. And so they gave me a thing, whatever. So somehow they didn't put something in the system. They didn't do something. Whatever it was, they didn't do. And so when I was coming from, and counties is literally like 2 minutes over. So if I leave my house, it's a county. I think that's a county. It's a county like 3 minutes down the road. I'm over into another county. If I go 3 minutes to the right, I'm in another county. Like literally little video counties, right? And so I went down the street from my house and I said, I'm gonna go up there today and help them decorate for Christmas getting to, and I want to go see Mrs. Such. That was an old lady in there that I love. And so I went in there and helped them with decoration, went and got her dressed and got her out of the room. And we went on down there and I had her helping me with the decorations, right? Y'all, they loved me so much in there. People was flying out their room. People who wouldn't come out their room started coming out their room and everything. I need to start going back and do it again. And so they like, here she come. Right. And so I was coming from down there from volunteering. And when I think one of the workers called on me. That's what I think. As soon as I left out of there, I got pulled over. The officer had towed my car, did all this nasty stuff, right? And so when I had to go to court, I went, the guy I was dating at the time, he went with me. And he like, don't go in there talking crazy. I said, I don't talk crazy. Where's you getting this from? Right? Because he just know my mouth be slick, but he never seen me handle business. And so I went in there and I'm sitting down and I'm watching this judge call all these people up here. And I'll never forget the case before mine. It was this young dude, 19 years old, that had got pulled over for driving over 100 miles per hour down a side road and flying over speed bumps, driving crazy, and was drunk. Right? Drunk doing this. The judge had gave him a slap. He said, what was going on with you and why you was doing it? Could you explain to me why you was driving that fast down the side road in this neighborhood? You know, in certain neighborhoods, you can't do that. He said, I'm very depressed and I have deal with mental issues. The judge told him, okay, I feel so bad for you. Don't do that again. Gave him a slap on the wrist and made him pay a fine. He went out that door. I said, I wish they would. I turned around and looked at him. I said, I wish they would not listen to me. Y'all, I looked at him. I said, I wish he would play with me when I get up there. Y'all, and he played with me too. And so it was one of them one little small counties where it's all white people at. And so I was the only black person in the courtroom. And he kept looking up at me. That judge kept looking at me. He had a bone to pick, right? But I had one to pick back. He wasn't ready. And I said, I know that dude ain't just have a DUI doing 125 miles up and down the street. And they done pull him over. And that man just told him, I just feel, I have mercy and all this, because my son struggles with, right? Just made it up. So we ain't think nothing, man. I looked over at my people. I said, I wish he would play with me up there. He better have the same mercy for everybody, right? And he called me last. This was crazy. He had a bone to pick. And he ain't want nobody else to see this bone he had to pick. So he made sure. Now, my last name starts with a B. So why am I last? In court, they go by your last name. Showed up super early, and I'm the last one out of here. He was being nasty. And so when I got up there, he said, it says you do this and this, that, and the other, right? And he looking all nasty. His voice didn't change. And I said, yes. And I let him say, well, all he was going to say and take up. He started beginning to take up for the officer. I hadn't even said nothing. I said, well, can I speak here for a second since you said what all you had to say? Oh, sure, you can go ahead. And I said, hold on. I said, let me tell you this. I said, I'm going to get to my story in a minute. I said, what happened to me, my car being towed, all that was unfairly done. And they pulled me over on Martin Luther King Day, right? This what happened on Martin Luther King Day. And so I said, I just watch you have grace and mercy on everybody that hit this courtroom, even that little boy who 19 years old, who drove up and down that road, could have killed somebody, could have flipped his car and ended up in somebody's household, right? And killed multiple people by what he was doing. And you gave him grace and mercy. And I come up here and you talk to me in the kind of way. The guy at the time I was there, he said, you just need this. He's like, hey, like that. I said, you need to shut up and sit down. I don't walk in fear. That just looked like, what the hell? I said, you gave everybody grace and mercy. I said, you hadn't heard my side of the story. You hadn't let me talk. You hadn't let none of that. And I said, I was wrongfully pulled over. Your officer, look on that thing. He don't have no reason why he pulled me over, right? Because somebody had called on me out at that because I was in the white people neighborhood. Somebody had called on me when I left there. They was jealous that I was in there and them people liked me. And so, I think somebody in there knew that I had this piece of paper or whatever. And so, for me to drive and stuff like that. And so when the officer came, they had like 6 police officers pull up on me. Like I'm some type of high rank criminal or something. I'm like, what the hell? Right? But thank God it was one officer when he got out of the car with his people and he figured out what they called him there for. He said, you called me over here for this. She ain't no criminal. You don't need me over here. What's going on? Like you're putting over what? It didn't make sense to him. He got a car. The one car they pulled off. They didn't want nothing to do with it. They knew it wasn't right. He pulled it straight off on him. No, right? Pulled off on him. So he had me in the back of the police car. He said, I can drop you off at home, but we got to tow your car. That's already number one, something wrong. And so he lied and said I didn't have insurance. Y'all, I had insurance and everything. And so I said, I got to put it up through, I don't have a card. I got to put it up through my insurance agent. And for a fact that I had insurance because I had to have insurance in order to even I had to present insurance to the county where I was from for me to even get the paperwork, right? That was something I had to sit to the side and do. And so the judge was so mad when I gave him what I said. He knew I was right in what I said. He was like, well, it says that your insurance for 3 months. I said, it's only in the first month. I just got the paper from the judge. I said, I was out at I think he started to calm down once he was like, damn. I said, I was at the nuns retirement center with the nuns place right down the street from you guys. I said, now go in there and I volunteer. And I said, I like to go up there. I said, and the people in there, they know me. Go in there and ask them about me. And I said, I go in there and take the residents out of their room. And I said, and right now it's Christmas time, so I go in there and decorate with them. Right? And I bring them out of their rooms for them to help me decorate. And he looked like, what the hell? Like, damn, that's crazy. He said, and you got pulled over where? And I said, somebody called on me. Whoever was in there, they mad that I was in there helping them because they racist out there. And he knew what I was talking about. He ain't stupid. He knew I was telling the truth. And I said, and somebody got mad because they knew. I said, a couple people in there knew I had that paper. And I said, but it was this one particular person that's very nasty. And I said, and they called when I left out of there because it wasn't making sense how as soon as I pulled out of there, I got pulled over. It didn't make sense, right? I said that I was targeted. Somebody told them she in this car that. These are very small towns. And so, and it probably was that one of them people's family members. Whoever called it was one of their family members. And so he said, well, oh, God. He said, well, you got 3 months worth of insurance. He said, how much is your insurance? And I told him. He said, can you do me a favor? He said, I need you to go in the hallway and get 3 more months worth of insurance on your car. He said, just for safety precautions. And he said, you got the money to do it? I said, yep. He said, go out there and get the insurance on your car and come back in here and put me on the phone with the insurance people so I could verify that you got it. And so I did it, went back in there. They verified she got it. We put it on there. He said, I'm about to release your car. You ain't got to pay no money to get your car out the impound. He said, that's going to be covered. Right? My car was in there for like 4 or 5 days. Right? Probably longer than that. He said, you're not going to pay a dime for that. He said, and I'm going to erase your court fees. Right? So he had me pay that, but it saved me so much more money. And I went right on down the street and got my car. Right? The moral of the story, y'all, I'm about to get off of here. The moral of the story, what I'm saying, right? When this particular individual from my family called me and they had all these excuses to why their life is going straight to shit, right? Why everything is wrong and everybody else is wrong with them. Why they pointing fingers at everybody else and they can't get their life together because everybody else around them but them, right? This person blamed everybody but themselves. The court, the judge, the lawyer, the mama, the daddy, the granny, the cousin. She started bringing up people that I don't even know, right? She was blaming everybody but herself for her situation. And I said, this is why. I said, and this is how I know you back in the background spiritually attacking. This is how I know you using spiritual energy, spiritual weapons. This is why I know what you've been doing, right? God just had verified me everything that I already knew, everything that he already put me on to, that you was doing, right? Moral of the story is, the same thing I told my daughter. My daughter called me and she said, oh, I went down here and I just having so many problems. I went this way and they said, wait to this. And they said, wait to that, wait to, I can't do that, I can't do that. Right? And I said the same thing I said to my daughter, to her. I said, let me tell you something. People can form weapons, right? But they will not prosper. People can do hold up spells, wait a minute spells, put a blockage in the way spell, everywhere she turned blocker spell, right? But when you are for the right thing, right? I got out the house at a young age. I was like 15 years old when I left home. Got my first place at 17 years old, right? I didn't know about social security cards, birth certificates, none of that stuff. I didn't know you had to do, I ain't never know such thing as that stuff, right? Everywhere I turned, God had opened up the door and forged a way for me, right? And everybody, when I met them, they was more than happy to help me through the door and get on through there and show me the way, right? When you on the up and up and you have pure intention behind what you do, right? People may form weapons, but they will not prosper. I'm going to say that again, right? So I went a lot of places. People try to put the blocks there, right? God showed me, right? Because I just recently started feeling the spiritual attacks physically. And I said, God, why are you doing this to me? I complained. God said perception, right? And basically, when I lay in the bed and I was crying about this spiritual attack that I was feeling, I said, God, why? He kept saying perception. And I finally got it after 3 months of feeling these 4 months, maybe even 5 of feeling these spiritual attacks heavily, right? And I said, oh, wait a minute. God, y'all, I was crying. I went to bed and I said, God, you letting them do this to me. You said it come near me, but it won't touch my tent. I'm reading Psalm 91. God, it's touching me, right? God said, this damn girl, y'all, we need to take that. The ancestors, the angels and the ancestors in the background. Like, Lord, wait a minute. She got it. She gonna get it. She gonna get it. He like, that one too strong, because I'm very gifted. Y'all got a lot of gifts, right? And I was born with gifts. And I walked with the gifts, right? And I said, when I got old enough to figure out they was gifts, I thought it was normal, right? God let them go, come back, and, hide them and take them away again and bring them back again, right? This is something you got to go through on your journey. And so one of the ones, he had took a lot of them from me, and I'm crying, Daddy, I can't see. The birds ain't outside, right? God had opened up so many gifts to me, y'all, that he let some, because somebody was playing in something spiritual, and they wanted my gifts for themselves. God understand in the story of Job, what stuck out to me the most was God had to lift his hands off in order for it to happen. He had to lift that hedge of protection away for that thing to happen, right? And so, in order for them to siphon that and take that, God let them do it, right? But God had let them do it also because he was trying to show me the other gifts as well that I had, right? And the other ways that he had communicated to me. I was so reliant on these particular gifts that I wouldn't look at nowhere else for no other gifts. I don't want to see it. I'm good, right? God had opened me up to some things. I'm in the house like, they talking to me. I can't see. Send me a red card, no. I need to see. Right? You ain't sending me nothing. Don't talk to me. Right? God like, oh, y'all, we got to take that back. She is cracking up. My ancestors like, no, she'll be all right. She'll get it in a minute. Wait a minute, God, don't take that from her. She'll get it. She'll get it. Wait, they up there bargaining with God for you. Wait, she'll understand. I kept hearing perception. Everything I cut on said perception, right? I scrolled on my phone because the perception is of, turn on the TV, the perception, right? God was talking like a mug, right? And I'm sitting there freaking out. Opening up the Bible, Psalms 91, Psalms 23, Psalms 21, right? I'm in here lighting the candle. God, you ain't hearing me. I'm gonna light a candle because God ain't hearing me. I gotta light this white candle because in the Bible they said they was lighting white candles, and maybe he ain't hearing me correctly, right? Y'all, I'm freaking out, feeling these spiritual attacks. And one day I was fussing, and I went to lay down, y'all, and I'm fussing, and I'm tossing and turning, and I'm fussing, and I finally went to doze off. And y'all, I jumped out of the bed. I said, oh, shoot, okay, God, right? I said, that's what you were saying, right, God? Like, finally, Jesus, girl. Right? So he had showed me a glimpse of what people was doing in the background. He kept showing me what people was doing in the background, right? What he was trying to show me was these people always have been attacking you, baby. They always been blocking your roads. But I was not ready for those gifts yet, right? I wasn't ready to feel that yet. I wasn't ready to know what they was doing yet because I was too involved with them still, right? These people, these family members, these ex-friends, these ex-lovers, right? I wasn't ready to explore that side of things yet, right? So God just protected me along the way, right? He always opened the doors for me wide, busting wide open. And I told them the only way God is not opening up the door for you, I'm gonna go back because I can't remember if I said that when I said that I told my cousin and I told my daughter, if you doing something wrong, if you being wrong in your movement and your actions and being nasty in your movement and your action, God is not opening up no doors for you to form weapons against none of his. Understand that. Everything in your life will crumble. Some of y'all won't even make it playing with God's people, right? People going in the background opening up court cases on you because they mad because you moving forward with your life after you done been through hell, high waters and dragged yourself, picked yourself back up, right? They mad. So you got to ask yourself, when people is in your face mad like that, going up against you and trying to form court cases on you, what's really going on? What you really was involved in, right? God showed you right in your face the people the closest to you was the ones that was doing it to you, right? But I was not ready back then to know, to understand, right? It took me to 4 years ago when my son passed away. When my son passed away, woo, that was heart-wrenching. That was throw up. It was it's something unbearable. It's something unexplainable. It's something unhumane. You understand? It's something dark. It's just, you can't explain that, right? And so not only did God allow that to happen, right? Because he didn't do it. He also started to reveal to people around me, y'all, that was the worst time in my life. And he's still doing it 4 years later. And it's getting worse, but better, right? Worse, but better. I don't even know how to explain it. Y'all had to leave out my house. They had a landlord doing stuff. Everybody was doing stuff. Still doing stuff, right? Plot, planning, scheming, trying to take stuff from you, right? That you don't even know you got yet. And trying to make you look incompetent, going behind the scene, getting diagnoses on you that you ain't never even been to the person to get diagnosed, right? They doing a lot of stuff and have been doing a lot of stuff behind the scene. And so, let me go back. I wasn't ready for those things yet, to know. But boy, when my son passed, God let it open. He let it rip, right? Like it was just like, okay, he died. She hurt. I don't want, I watched that Mary story, right? And something that stuck out to me in that Mary, they was like on a TV show or whatever, and her husband was trying to get their lives to come back together, and so they went to go see somebody for their marriage, and so her husband told her some things, and she would think that they was healing, right? Okay, we're gonna work through it, but he kept waiting to tell her stuff, and she finally kept waiting to tell her stuff, right? And so she finally broke, and she said, why do he keep waiting to tell me stuff? Why ain't he just laying it all out on the table, right? It's like he trying to purposely hurt me or something. Like, okay, you tell me this, and I say, okay, I can forget that. We work through it. You say something else, I say, okay, we can work through it. You tell me something else, wait a minute, right? Put it all out on the table so we can begin to heal. Why? It's like you trying to hurt me. Why you keep doing that to me? Right? Why are you continuously doing that to me? That's somebody that's trying to hurt you. I don't care if it's, and a lot of times it be your man, your cousin, your mama, your sister, your brother, that be that spiteful and jealous of you. Right? Your woman, whoever, they be in the back trying to take you down, jealous of the way you move, jealous that you got a voice for God, jealous. And they be in the back, she thinks she all that. She thinks she the head. She ain't the head. Got Superman complex. Ain't nobody got time for that. Right? And so they purposely do that to you. But so that's how I felt, right? I'm like, God, you just keep. I'm happy that God didn't do that to me. But it is still like that, right? And so God let it rip, right? Everything that everybody was doing, God started pulling people's masks off. I'm like, she ain't look like that. Why her face twisted up like that? In the spirit, right? Why her eyes black like that? Why he look like that? What the hell, God? That's a demon wearing a meat suit. Wait a minute. That thing melting all off of him. You need to pick yourself up, bruh. You know what I'm saying? When God open you up to the spirit in your eyes, you be like, ooh, right? And so, right? I'll never forget, y'all. My dad was inside of the mall. And he called me, and me and him would talk on the phone, right? And he put his earbuds in. I put my earbuds in. And so one day he said, I'm going to have me a meat day. This is how me and my dad roll, right? I'm having me a meat day, right? Every time he come around me, this is how I am, Dad. I got to go have me a mental health day. I got to go get a massage today, right? And so he picked that up, and I'm happy he did. And so he like, I'm going to have me a meat day. You know how you do. You know how you do. I'm going to have me one of those days, right? And so he went to the mall, went to the food part, right? And he talking to me normal. And all of a sudden, he get like kind of quiet. I'm like, Dad, you hear me? Dad, you hear me? He like, mm-hmm. You know, he barely ain't talking no more. So I'm like, what is he paying attention to that he ain't listening to me? He's talking about some, hold on real quick. Y'all, he walks over, seeing the woman at the food court, right? He in there being lustful, right? Playing games. But you can't do that when you spiritual, right? God will convict you, right? He walks over, he said, hold on real quick. Hold on, move, hold on. So he talking to the lady, and I hear her, right? Just laughing and smiling. I can hear her through the phone. I'm like, ugh. You know, you hear your dad in front of somebody, be like, ugh, right? And so I'm like, boy, you need to go on somewhere. And he up there talking his talk like he a pimp from 1987, right? And she went to turn around, and my dad like, ugh. He like, okay, you have a nice day. Like, the conversation just ended, right? And she like, I know my dad just abruptly ended the conversation. I'm like, I know she got to be like, what the hell, right? So he like, he went from talking normal and talking like he was pimp from 1987, right? To this like, oh, hell no, right? I heard it in his voice. I heard it in his spirit, right? And he like, oh, you have a nice day, right? And it was just abrupt out of nowhere. And he walked away, and she like still trying to talk to him. He like, yeah, because you know God, right? He done threw God in your arm, hollering, right? Because I'm like, what did he just see, right? What's going on? So he got far away from her. He said, man, I had to sit down, man. And I said, what's wrong? What's going on? He like, man, God. He said, that's why I be telling you, man. He said, that's what I be saying, man. He said, God sure convicts you, especially when you're doing something you ain't got no business doing. He said, man, Moo. He said, man, she was talking to me, and I started to smell an aroma. I said, did she stink? He said, you couldn't smell her physically. He said, but out of nowhere, I started to smell this smell, like this nasty, rotten smell. He said, and then she turned around, and her panties was all black. I said, what? I said, what, she had some leggings on? You could see through the leggings, right? He like, no, like, God, let me see it all, man. God, let me see everything in the spirit, man. She got that thing, you know. She got that monkey on her back. He like, she stunk so bad in the spirit. He said, and we'll put the icing on the cake. I was trying to ignore the smell. He said she turned around and her panties was black. Y'all, I could not. Right? I was in the house. My bladder had got weak. I almost peed on myself laughing so hard. Right? I said, that's what you get. He told me, I ain't doing that no more. I'm just going to have me a good rest of my day. He said, God just convicted me right there. He said, now I got conviction all on me. He said, I feel dirty. I got to go home and take a bath. Oh, y'all, this dude is crazy. Oh my God, y'all, he was dead serious. But anyways, y'all, I got completely off topic, right? Anyways, let me go back to what I was saying, y'all. I'll come back to this later, because I'm telling you. So anyways, I was saying something about you could see in the spirit right through people, right? You could see, God will show you, right? When God pull the mask off of people, and everybody that was around, they looked at twisted up. And I remember starting to tell my dad, I said, Dad, I said, man, I was looking at such and such, right? He knew the person I was talking about. I said, man, why he look like they a demon in the meat suit? I said, meat suit look like it's sliding off. He know what I'm talking about when I'm saying what I'm saying, right? But he in shock that I'm saying this because he know that I'm like a spiritual. He know that I got gifts, but I don't think he knew how deep my gifts was, right? And so when you already had those levels of gifts and your child is calling you and saying something that you already know about, right? A lot of people don't know about these type of things, right? And these spiritual awakenings and these levels of the spiritual awakenings, right? And so a lot of people, they deal with these things so much by themselves that they really don't say nothing, right? They just keep their gifts to themselves, right? And so when my dad was growing up as well, he was gifted. A lot of his brothers is gifted because my granny had 5 boys. They are gifted, But back in their days, my granny days, she was gifted. All the way my dad days, they gifted. They couldn't say nothing. They was considered a mental nut, right? And so a lot of them is becoming bitter too as well. Not my family like that, some of them too, but a lot of people are bitter because so many people are open about their spiritual gifts now, and they grew up in the time frame where they couldn't speak on that, right? And so they like, she was out here speaking on that, and we couldn't do it, right? And they want to be putting spell work all on YouTube because now they mad because you speaking on stuff. Because back in my day, we couldn't talk about that. They stuck off in that. No, right? And so anyways, y'all, he was shocked when I said that. He like, I know what you're talking about. And so we went back to that day in the mall, right? And he said, that's exactly what you see. I know you got it. Like, he knew I had these gifts because it's something he been harboring and holding on to. He couldn't say nothing about it, right? And I said, Dad, her meat suit. He said, that's the perfect name for it. He said, Mom, I've been looking at it for years, but I couldn't put a name to what I was looking at, right? He said, you see it. He said, but I could never put a name to or a label on that, right? He said, I know exactly what you're talking about. He said, and that is exactly what it is, a meat suit, right? And so I'm like, you know what I'm talking about? He's like, yeah, I know what you're talking about, right? He said when they be looking like he said they face be drooping on one side, one of their eyes be bigger than the other, right? He said it looked like that. He said, what you saying it is. This is what the hell it is, right? And so he knew, we both knew what it was, right? So he knew, like, I ain't been tripping all this time. That's what I was looking at, right? It's a meat suit. And I said they have done so much things in the spirit, right? That something had attached to them. They had did so much dark, nasty stuff up in the spirit, right? Where something had attached to them, and that thing is on them, and that thing has took them over, right? It comes to a point where they calling on it, and then they start beginning to share it, and then they keep doing it to the point where that thing just taking over. And that demon can't wear that because it ain't supposed to be here. And so it starts to, people with spiritual eyes to see, they can see it. It starts to look like it's sliding, like it's sloppy, right? They try to, chocolate, right? Like it literally look like they're falling, the skin is falling off the bone, right? And it looks real ticky. It almost look like God. Some people, God will give you a glance even farther to where I done seen like bubbles and sores on people, right? Spiritually. And it's sliding off of them, y'all. I done seen this with my own two eyes. I'm like, ew, Jesus. Like when men approach me, they don't understand, right? This one guy was at the gas station. He would have touched me. I freaked out. Right? I'm like, don't touch my hands. Won't be no handshaking. Somebody that was around me kept touching. They would try to hand me something. But I noticed that every time they would hand me something, they would try to rub my hand. I noticed that. And one day I went completely the fuck off, right? Don't touch me. Stop touching my, what are you talking about? These people know what they're doing, but they sitting up there playing up in your face, right? And so I told him, when you hand it, just put it down. Put it down. Don't touch me, right? Don't touch me. People trying to siphon off you, trying to get abundance. They going, touching you and then going gambling. They doing a lot of slick shit, right? And a lot of these people, your spouses, a lot of them are targeting you before you even know who they are. They know who you are, right? And they think that you don't know these. God is always, and if you don't know at first, God eventually reveal it to you, and they reveal it to you by their actions, right? And I would notice that this person kept rubbing my hand. Like they were going to hand me something, but do this caress on my hand when they hand me something, but acting like they just handed it to me. And and I know you know what it is, and that they ain't right, because when he did it, it gave me an ick. It gave me a real bad ick, right? And I told him that something was on the floor. I said, hand me that. And when they handed it to me, it was a quick hand, but it was like a quick, they handed it to me quickly, and then they did something with like that, right across my knuckles. I just about fell out, right? It was an ick. Right? Oh, it's an ick to it, y'all. And so it was filthy. Like what he said, my dad said, he felt like he had to go take a shower after he seen that woman, right? It's something that I got to scrub this thing off. Oh. It's disgusting, right? And so, not joking, y'all. It sucks. Like sometimes it really sucks. And so, and sometimes that thing can linger for days, that feeling of that ick. And so let me keep going, y'all. Anyways, y'all, let me go back to what I was saying. I was saying that God had begun to reveal people around me, right? People's faces were sliding off. All type of stuff, right? People was look like they were stroking out in the spirit. I'm like, what the hell? God, what is this, right? And it's not like it's just happening. It be like in your mind's eye real quick. In your mind's eye real quick, right? So for people who not spiritual and don't know, it's not something that you literally like seeing with your two eyes. It's like in your mind's eye real quick, right? Like even when my grandfather passed, he passed at 11:11. God had already back here for a minute. So when my granddad passed, I kept seeing like an infinity symbol, the figure 8, swirling back and forth. And when he went on the cross at 11:11, God had already started showing me that number. But when he crossed over, I was on the side of his bed, and I felt like, you know how your leg go to sleep, that feeling, that buzz feeling? It was like that buzz feeling times 1,000 with a warmth to it, right? Like he had passed me the baton, right? And I seen in my mind's eye this infinity symbol, right? And it was a beautiful feeling. It was one of the most beautiful feelings that I ever felt in my life, right? When my grandfather passed away, right? And he was siphoning energy to keep himself healthy as well. God had revealed that to me as well, right? And so that energy had to come back to me. He been knew I was going, as well as he went on ahead and blessed me as well. Spiritually, he did bless me. And so I knew he had did it. And so, what was I going? Where was I going? Jesus. Y'all, I'm all off topic. What was I telling y'all about, it was something I was telling y'all. Give me a second. Let me go back and watch my other video. Okay, hold on. Y'all. I was saying, I had to yawn. But what I was saying was about the guy at the gas station, right? When I was at the gas station, this man had walked up to me, and he was at the pump behind me, and he was with a man. I knew he had got sent in too. And when he walked up to me, he was like, "Oh, what's up, Ma?" I was on the phone with somebody. "What's up, Ma? What's going on with you?" And when I turned around and looked at him, I glanced in his eyes. I don't like to look people in their eyes, right? That's a trick of the shaitan. That's a trick of the devil, right? When people say, my dad used to say, when we look people in their eyes and da, because, you know, but he was my business in. But as time went on, I went back and corrected my dad about that. And he was like, "You absolutely right. I'm happy." He said, "You just told me something, right, that I knew, but I couldn't put a finger on it." And I said, "Dad, it's not." Remember when I was a kid, you used to say, "When we look people in the eyes, I always look down," right? But I didn't know as a kid that I had these gifts and I was this sensitive, right? And some people, demons are so serious that when you look them in their eyes, that now you find yourself fighting spiritual warfare, right? Because now they spirit want to challenge your spirit. Now it just be too much. And so, anyways, I glanced into this dude's eyes, and he was really dark, right? And I seen bubbles all on his face. And he said, "Why are you out here pumping this gas by yourself in this big old truck?" And I looked at him, I said, "Excuse me, I only got $2 left to pump. I got $2 left to pump." And he went to reach for my nozzle, and my hand was right there. He was trying to transfer energy and siphon energy, right? Right there, somebody sent that nigga in. I flipped out at the gas pump. They was looking all at me, and the people know me at the gas station. And the guy came outside. He said, "You all right?" I said, "No, he over here messing with me." He like, "Damn, you cool, man? I ain't cool because you a demon. You got something on you. Your face bubbling in the spirit, right? Your lips sliding all off to the left, and you freaking me out, man. And then you sit up there trying to touch my hand." He tried to take the pump, but he was trying to touch my hand. Something about the hands. "Don't touch me. I will pour this gas all over you with this $2.19 left, bitch. Get away from me," right? Because when you come up on your gifts and God starts telling you how serious this spiritual thing is, we all, spiritual gifts or not, are fighting in the spirit. We all are in spiritual warfare right now. All of us. Every last person on this earth is in spiritual warfare in some type of way, whether you know it or not. Right? And so he is certain, when you reach certain levels, certain type of high-ranking demons start to come after you, and that vessel has to be strong enough for that entity to be carried inside of it. And so that's why God started, when I was complaining about the spiritual attacks and starting to be able to feel them right, God was showing me that he was opening me up to something completely different now, because it was time for me to come into that gift. It was time for that thing to unlock, because I'm going into a new adventure. I'm going into another ground within this, right? I'm going into another playground in this, right? I'm going on to a level. It's like Super Mario, right? Super Mario, with every level that Super Mario beat, right? And what's crazy is that everything that I start seeing, it starts to appear, right? And so I remember I started to talk about the story about Super Mario, Job, all of these things, and certain videos would pop up on these individuals that I started speaking on. Super Mario Brothers, 3 different games popped up 3 different videos of a Super Mario Brothers popped up back to back, right? And it just blew me, right, that I was on topic, right? And a lot of times, God will give me the message first. That's how blessed I am. And I had to start realizing that. And then after God gave me that message and I did not deliver that message, he would use other people to deliver the message. And this went on for some time before I finally said, oh, no, right? I'm honored, right? I didn't know these things was happening. I didn't know, right? I didn't believe in myself. And the people around me was trying to get me to doubt myself. That's what this thing been about, right? Get you to doubt yourself, right? And a lot of things that I was saying that was coming to fruition, they was hiding it in the back. They didn't want me to know that I had prophesied, right? We ain't telling her she ain't no prophet of God. She a prostitute. She a hoe. She look like that. She got a big booty. She ain't no prostitute. She ain't no prophet of God. This is these damn people that's in the church doing this. I'm in church. I got the word down pat. Is God talking to you? Did you go up in the spirit to attack that person because you felt like this and that? Right? It's a lot of that going on. And so anyways, God gave me a word and I got in the back of the lift with this deacon. I got a car to lift. And this deacon did some of the most unholy, unjustified stuff that I ever seen, right? I didn't know about the lifts and stuff like that. And he knew that. Because I told him when I got in there. For one, somebody sent him as well, right? When I got in the back of the lift, he tried to tell me I'm a prophet. He just came out with all these different, what you listening to? And I'm a prophet, and I'm this, and I'm that. Right? He started going and explaining stuff. I didn't ask this man nothing about him. And I went on and said a couple things to him. And he was so bothered by my spirit because he got sent in, right? He got sent in to do a job. And I began to convict him in the spirit because he don't know that I know that he got sent in. Because anytime you get in the back of somebody's car in a lift and they begin to attack you, it's a problem. And it's a few people in my family that found out that I just started taking a lift. And it's only a handful, so it could be a handful of those people that sent that person towards me, right? I didn't know that, like, if you stop somewhere, that the money still keep going or something, right? And so he said, well, I'll wait here for you. And I said, okay. I was running inside the coffee shop, coming back out, and it supposed to be getting dropped off at the dollar store. And I was going to call another lift. And so he said, I'll just wait for you. And I said, oh, okay. And he kept saying, when I got to the dollar store, I'll just wait for you out here, right? He was being evil. He was being nasty, right? And so when I got home and it binged, my car is hooked up to my stuff, it binged like $40 and like another $20. So I said, what the hell? And so God said, don't dispute it. Don't dispute it because I'm going to get him, right? And he said, oh, yeah, because I be going up in the spirit. But let me go back, too, because I be skipping around, so work with me, y'all. But I was saying about the Super Mario, I can't remember if I said it, that with every level that Super Mario be, he get equipped in that next level, right? And so that's the same thing with God and your walk. Once you get past that and you pass that test and you get to your next phase, God will equip you, right? Spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally, new gifts. You get all that, right? For your next thing, right? And things will begin to open up for you. But anyways, let me go back to this deacon, right? The sanctified. Let me go back to him. He was like, yeah, because I was praying for brother such and such in my community. And I had to do this and I had to do that, right? And I'm just looking at it. And I be getting in my chair and I get down in the spirit. Right? This is what he doing in the car. And facing sideways. And I get down in the spirit. Right? This is what he doing. Get down in the spirit. Shut up, Minnie. This is what he doing in the car. Oh. And I'm like, what? Yeah, because I be going to prayer. I go up into war. Brother needed me. And sister needed me. And I go in the spirit. And I fell out of my chair. My wife said, what's wrong with you? And I said, oh. I'm like, I said, for one, you need to stop going up in the spirit praying for people. He like, what? I said, you don't know what that. I said, let me give you an example, right? Since you ain't understanding what I'm saying. I said, right, my son passed away. And I said, I'm just going to use this as an example. I said, you need to stop going up in the spirit. God had let the sun come out. He said, my baby is speaking, y'all. It was just pouring down rain and cold as I don't know what. Look at the sun shining in, right? Confirmation, I'm on point. He said, speak, baby, right? And so, I got chills all over my body. God said, you're doing an awesome job. But y'all, I said, you need to stop going into the spirit, fighting other people's demons and other people's battles and other people's generational curses, right? I said, you don't know what that person did to land themselves there while you done took on their demon. He said, you sure no right. You sure no right. I ain't gonna lie. And I said, let me tell you something. I said, I'm gonna give you an example. I said, my son passed away. I said, now, and what I came to terms with, God gave me the story of Job around that time. And I said, I wasn't interested, but later on I was interested, and that's my favorite story. And I said, in order for it to happen, God had to take his hands off of, and I believe that other people that was very close, that was blood related to my son as well, was involved of spiritual attacks in that area, right? And I said, and sometimes God be trying to save you from things you don't even know that you need saving from, right? Things that's very demonic, things that will connect you to somebody, so that person can drain you energetically and spiritually, right? And I said, you have to be careful on who and what you connecting to. I said, but just say, for instance, right? I'm just going to use this as an example. I said, say, I had my son and my baby daddy. Say if I was pregnant, right? Before I got pregnant, my baby father was connecting with another woman. And when I got pregnant, he stayed connected to this woman. I said, this is just an example, right? This ain't facts, but I'm just saying, I'm just going to give you an example. I said, and then I got pregnant, and this side wench, this witch, this kitchen witch that he was connecting to, that he was taking my energy, laying with me, and then going to lay with her. And so she was walking my energy. And so somewhere near your divine masculine, divine feminine get conscrewed on who's the actual divine, right? Because he's laying with her and laying with you. And so he's taking your essence and your energy back to this woman, and vice versa when it comes to the divine masculine, right? And I said, and so he knew that this person was no connection of him and to them when they first started laying with him, right? They were just a trick, prostitute, hoe, whatever, somebody get their rocks off. I said, but somewhere in there, a lot of times the divine masculine would get confused because he starts to take the divine feminine energy to this karmic woman. And so the karmic feminine, a lot of these are kitchen witches, they start to cloak themselves in the divine feminine energy. And now the man is mixed up on who the hell his divine feminine is, right? I said, and so just say I got pregnant and I'm carrying a divine son, right? A child of God, right? And I said, it's God's son, right? Literally. And I said, and God is having my son to come here and do something, but only for a short while. It could have went on longer, but God wasn't going to never have that connected to you because of the amount of disgusting behavior that was going on and things that was going on in the background, right? But you don't know these things that right then and there. I said, so say if he connected to this woman, and not only is he connected to this woman, he begins to help this woman spiritually attack me, right? Because he didn't forget who the divine feminine is, because this witch done cloaked herself in his divine feminine energy because he was laying with both of them. So he confused, right? And I said, and so she attacking me, he attacking me. And I said, and then I had my son, I had all these complications during birth, right? Trying to kill me and my baby. And I said, and then this woman finally get her wishes granted. But the reason why a lot of times it was granted was because of the daddy was involved. Something close to that thing was connected in order for that thing to go through, right? But you can't see it yet. I said, I'm just giving you an example. I said, and so my son passed, right? I said, but the passing of my son was at the hands of somebody else, right? Eye for an eye is what God told me, right? Eye for an eye, right? So now don't be mad when he comes to you. And so, anyways, I said, and so this woman has went in the spirit, killed the baby, did all these things, right? Broke the divine feminine and masculine up that God brought together for a purpose, right? And did all these nasty things to this divine feminine. God's chosen with God's baby, right? And then this person, life started going wrong after they did all these things. After their life began to go wrong, stuff missing in the house. They got a poltergeist. They can't sleep because their ancestors in their vision, in their dreams, right? And then this person still don't learn their lesson. And since they going through it, they going to try to project. They go into the spirit and try to project what they going through off on that person, right? And so God, like, I done had enough. And so everything begins to go wrong for this person that you car flipping over, right? Everything going wrong. They losing everything, right? These people a lot of times don't want to give up. They keep going and digging themselves in a worse and worse and worse hole, right? I said the person finally say, okay, enough is enough. They try to run up in the church, right? A lot of times when you see them people just come out of nowhere and run up in the church, they done did something. And now you up there as an innocent bystander, then laid your hands on somebody trying to pull this thing, right? Because not only did they curse themselves in the midst of doing what they did, they cursed their lineage. They cursed lineages after lineages, including themselves and everything of them that's connected to them. Everything around them is cursed, right? And so you, innocent bystander, trying to help somebody out, don't know what this person that went up in the spirit and did. Trying to pray this thing off them. This Jezebel spirit, these demons, these curses, right? You, a child of God, going up in the spirit, if you know better, you will do better, right? You a child of God, and you going up in the spirit, tell myself, and loose here, right? But on top of that, You ain't even did the protocols to guard yourself in the spirit, right? Because I keep telling people, when you see all them people in the front, right, the women with the big fancy hats, the deacons, the men and their husbands, when you see them people in the front of that church, they are there for the congregation, not there for the big hats and the styles of it, right? They are supposed to be there to go into the spirit and do the correct things in the spirit to protect and cloak themselves, right? Fasting is one of them, right? Reading the Bible, coming together to do this and do that. And God, they gather. God say, if 2 or 3 gather in my name, what? Right? And so all these people going fasting and going up in the spirit, and then y'all connected to God people, ain't did nothing to protect your spot. All up in the spirit. All that up in the spirit, right? In the spirit. And you ain't did nothing to protect yourself. You ain't even put your plate away for the day. Like that lady said, not the baby back ribs. Not the baby back ribs. You ain't even put your plate away for the day. To be going up in no spirit, to be talking about, shut it, like that. He said, you sure know, right? Because one day I went in the spirit to go pray, ain't heard nothing I said. And I ate hot sauce, and God told me don't eat that hot sauce. God ain't told you nothing. And you talking about, I'm going up in the spirit to pray for somebody, and you ain't even covered. And this person that created some nasty stuff up in there, now you being attacked. Y'all, I have never, he was so mad. And so he was running up my tab, right? And she don't know about this. I'ma do this. He was being nasty, right? God told me don't you go up in there fighting about your money. I got you. That's the sacrifice. That couple dollars that you just did and he knew what he was doing, he about to get towed up, right? Sometimes don't do it. Don't go fight the battles. Don't even go rebuke the transaction. Right? God, that's my, you gonna handle that. I'm gonna keep it on there. I ain't refute nothing. God, that little bit, right? You gonna handle that. You can go and do what you need to do, right? He was sent towards me. And he got checked. And it wasn't me being nasty or nothing. He kept coming with these stories and what he was doing, and I just told him what I told him. And even though he was sent, it was a divine meeting. Just because people sent towards you don't mean that there ain't supposed to be a lesson out of that, right? Even the enemies, even the people you land with, some of them were sent. But it's a divine, they're in the back trying to defeat you and you just just hopping over shit. They putting shit all, just spilling oil on the floor and you just sliding on and do that motherfucker. They like this. She thinks she all that. He think he all that. I'm putting all these problems in their way and they keep just jumping over. Minnie, you got a demon on you. Shut up. Animals out of control. Anyways, the bird ain't even screaming today. Normally he be back there screaming. I got a pair. Normally he be, I'm like, shut up. Jesus Christ. But normally Ali will scream if I'm going the wrong way. Right? He like a personal alarm. Every time in the morning. You been asleep too long. I'll be like, shut up. But y'all, stop going up in these spirits, right? Let's go back here. Stop making excuses for yourselves, right? By everything going wrong in your life. And I just can't. I told my cousin, I said, she said, because I just had a bad feeling. I'm just going to go to jail. I said, well, go to jail and make something of yourself. Go to jail and preach, honey. Because if I was going to jail for something I did and didn't do, if God wanted me to go there, God had to allow it. That's my mind. He allowed it. If it happened, God allowed it. Because I know who I'm connected to. So I'm going in there. I'm going to say, maybe somebody in there need to be saved. Maybe you need to touch somebody. Tell a testimony, right? Go in there at peace, at ease. Let it go. The ways of the world. Just let it go. Just go to jail in peace, right? I don't got time for this. You ended up like that because you ended up like that. I'm not buying. I babied her for years when she reached out to me. And this before even God let me know she was attacking me. And then once he told me she was attacking me, the last conversation I had with her, I said, I'm done, Lord. I'm done listening to her. Every time she calls, she got some sad. It ain't, girl, I just got my place. Girl, I just got me a car. Girl, I got my babies. We eating ice cream today. Girl, I just went outside and got me some fresh air. And the hair, I just love the way the air blew through my hair. You know, it ain't, I went outside and planted my feet on the ground. Girl, I walked outside barefooted, girl. And I just thank God that I was able to smell the fresh air. Girl, I just woke up today, girl. And I was on the wrong side of the bed. And God just came to me. You know, I just said, be grateful, girl. Be grateful. You know? Say something good. Every time you call, something happening. What? What? Girl, you is a mess, child. Ooh, girl. Woo! Get off of me. You are on me. What? Our baby hurt for years. This is why I'm here now. And I'm like, it's just going to be okay. Yeah, your mom, people go through what they go through, for years. I'm tired. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Y'all, I'm about to be one of the people in the spirit. Chocolate. Get off of me. And you calling me for all the wrong reasons. You ain't even calling about what you're going through. You calling because what you did. You want redemption. You want me to go up in the spirit and ask for your rest. Hell no, because I don't know what you did. Stop talking about give him this and give him that. My child being disrespectful and all kind of stuff. Been doing my money, my this and my that. Girl, I bust you in your eyeball. I was so mad, upset yesterday. I don't never let myself get like that. But yesterday I had it up to here. I said, if I go down from a stroke or a heart attack, I'ma hop my one leg ass over there and tear you a new asshole. You're 18 now. You're running your mouth. Kids, disrespectful. And I was watching this lady. She said, your parents out here praying for you while you in the background telling them in their face to go to hell. And you're all taking God's gumption for granted. Taking the mercy and the prayer that your mom and your daddy got for you. God could have been snatched you up out of here. And your parent in the background, even though you disrespecting them, still praying on your behalf. I ain't praying for nobody. Snatch him, God. The innocent got took. My son got took. Right? He ain't did nothing. He ain't hurt nobody. He ain't none of that. And you, what? And God took him and he was, oh, hell no. Hell no. We got a problem. We got a problem. I will drop you like it's 1985. I will come. Y'all almost put my running shoes on, cut my tracks out my head, and put on my running shoes and ran across. Y'all look. Run down on them. She better be lucky I changed. But my uncle said something. You ain't changed. You just put it up. It come a time. He said, everybody be like, I changed. He said, Moo, ain't nobody changed. People just grow, learn, heal, and evolve, right? And they just learn how to control that thing in them. They just learn how to put it on the back burner, right? But anytime it really needs to come out, it's going to come out. Anytime you need that thing for survival, it's going to come out, right? Anytime somebody to disrespect you one too many times, you're going to bring it out, right? He said nobody ever really changed. Nobody ever really changed. They just put it up. They grow, they heal, they learn how to tame it. They learn how to, put it up in the back until they need it, right? Nobody changed. He said, I'm so tired of hearing that. He said, anybody come to me, he said, you very smart and you very open. He said, so I can't say that about you. He said, but if people coming to me, somebody they change, I'm getting the fuck away from them. Because what is you changing from? What was you back in the days? What was you? What did you put on the side? I'm going to put my Bible in the back seat. Where'd you come from? Where you been? You know what I'm saying? Don't come over here. You might have been a mass, right? Talking about you changed. Anyways, y'all. I was watching a video, y'all, and I know y'all don't know what I'm talking about. And God bless that man's soul. God bless that man's soul. God bless his soul, right? And I'm so happy for him if that happened for him, right? But this came to the forefront. He said, I was gay, and God put that up, and I changed. And I'm like, you don't just change overnight from... You just don't. The fruitiness was all in him. Anybody can be delivered from anything, right? But if I see that thing, if you jumping up and you a man and your butt cheek clapping, you ain't changed. That thing is still in there. You need some serious deliverance. You got to go into fasting. You got to go fasting. I don't know what he did, but I'm just saying, I seen that thing still in there. And that man who I was in the car talking to, he had that on him too, right? And I don't got nothing against it. I believe that some people are really born that way, right? And I don't have nothing against, don't get it twisted. I don't have nothing, but it's some people who things happen to them as well and they turn that way, right? And so when it's a difference from people, I can see the spirit in the spirit. I can see when people are actually that way and born that way, like they really born, they was born that way, right? Cause it's like little boys that I see and girls where I see where they came straight out the womb. And even my granny said, she said, she a bull digger. I said, what? My granny called me a bull digger. Cause when you were a teen, you go through them phases where you dress like a tomboy. I'm pretty sure a lot of women went through that. Well, when I was young, about 13, 14, I was like a little tomboy. My granny turned around and said, we got to deliver that spirit out of her. What? She got it. Her mama and her granny innocently, they all like that. Right? My granny on my dad's side, she said it's all in your mama's side of the family. Y'all, that church had people towed up. But she said, y'all right. But it's some people that is really innocently in them, right? And then you got those people who were somebody done did something to them, and that entity transfers, right? Remember I told you about the hand touching, right? Somebody do that to somebody and do other things, right? That energy transfers, right? And it keep coming and picking out different victims, right? And I do believe that it's multiple of one thing, right? Obviously. And so when that man was in the car with me, I felt that essence and that presence. Even when he was talking, I was going in the spirit, and I was blah, 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 blah. And his wife called him like 3 or 4 times. And so, and he put her on speakerphone, and she like, brother such and such passed away, and he was in the church, he wasn't lying. But I seen that spirit on him. Hey, right? And so I don't feel like it's fair to the woman to have to go through that, right? Some women don't see it. Some women see it and ignore it. I don't know. But I'm telling you, some things ain't even about spirituality. Some things you just see. A regular person can walk past and be like, you see what you see. That's what it is. But he eventually said, when I said something to him about going up in his spirit and going on somebody else's behalf, and you ain't even cloaked and covered yourself a lot of the times, you just doing stuff. So much you a prayer warrior and all this crazy stuff, and you the deacon of such and such. I said, and demons is hopping on people. Right now, your family and your lineage is battling on something because you went up in there and that demon is separated, and I was sharing the both of y'all because you done went up in somewhere and it came out. He said, you sure know, right? Because I was at work, and one of my coworkers, this woman was coming at me, and I had to go pray. I had to go pray that off of me. It's on you anyways. It's in you anyways. Right? He got 5 girls. He had 5 girls. I don't trust him. I ain't even gonna lie. He was sugared and sugar, right? Someone right there. And so he used his wife in the church to hide behind. And I know that's what he was doing. And so when I was saying things, it was convicting him as well. And then you got to understand that he been playing his role. And a lot of church folks are good actors. It all sound like, look like, walk like, talk like. That's a spirit. That is a spirit, right? They all sound alike a lot of times. Lord have mercy. Anyways, y'all, I'm about to get on off of here. I have to save a story for another day, but I'm going to upload this today. I got to go down to the store in my Meemaw dress, right? And my pillow and my bonnet. Today is a relaxation day. And I still got about 2 hours. I might go give me a massage. But I love you guys. I'll get back on here with another one. If I did not finish something, oh well, if I think about it later on, I'll come back, record another one, put it back up, right? Because I done been through so much stuff, y'all. I be talking about stuff thinking I finished it, ain't finished it, right? And so y'all gonna have to work with me. I say this all the time. So I'll be back with another one. Love you. Goodbye.